Los Angeles in 2025 was no longer a refuge for the American dream. It has become a brutal battleground where the city not only fights against poverty, but declares war on those who once called this place home.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It gives me anxiety. And like my heart race.
Which for us it's better, but for them it's worse because there's no solution to their problem.
If we fought for our country, why can't you guys fight for us? We need help.
From hostile architecture to the sounds of eviction echoing through the night, from the cold judgments of the media to the silent sweeps at dawn, the City of Angels is finding every way to erase the presence of those who cannot afford to live in paradise. In today's video, we will take you into a battlefield few dare to face, the war between the brightly lit Los Angeles and the people left in the dark, where the target is no longer crime or disease, but those who can no longer afford a roof over their heads. This is not just a crisis. This is a warning for every city in America that if we continue to let the vulnerable be pushed to the bottom, sooner or later, this society will collapse from within. There was a time when Los Angeles was the place where people came to start over, the city of sunshine, of the Hollywood dream, of seemingly endless opportunities. For many Americans of previous generations, LA was the destination to escape the cold of the East, find a job, and start a new life with the belief that as long as they worked hard, everything would turn out well. However, today, the very heart that once sheltered California's dreams is now trembling in the face of an unprecedented homelessness crisis. This place is no longer a paradise for everyone. It has become a fierce battleground, where the war is not against crime or natural disasters, but an increasingly intense confrontation between the city and its own residents.
Well, it's a bad situation with no solution on the horizon. We all have heard about the homelessness being an emergency.
75,312 people. That is not just a number. That is the fate of tens of thousands of people living without a roof over their heads in Los Angeles. If we put that number on the scales, it would even exceed the population of a city like Redondo Beach. The special thing is that these people are not strangers. Many people were once your neighbors, veterans, taxpayers, or retirees who spent their whole lives chasing the so-called American dream. No one thinks they will become homeless until an unexpected event comes along that makes it actually happen. And at that moment, we may gradually realize that the entire system that once supported us, insurance, social security, community, has silently vanished. This crisis does not stem from a single cause. It is the result of a series of silent resonances, seemingly minor fluctuations, but with significant weight. The rent has reached $2,500 for a cramped, old apartment. Meanwhile, modern skyscrapers continue to sprout up like mushrooms after the rain, while affordable housing areas, once shelters for thousands of working families, are gradually being demolished to make way for luxurious commercial projects. Not only housing, but also the prices of food, electricity, water, and healthcare have all skyrocketed. Just the price of a dozen eggs reaching $9 has turned nutritious meals on the dining table into a luxury. Meanwhile, incomes remain stagnant. Subsidies are becoming thinner, slower, or disappearing completely. All of those things quietly accumulate over time, until they become a burden that completely crushes the American dream and the people who still hold on to that dream. For many Los Angeles residents who still have a roof over their heads, the emotions have now gone beyond mere sympathy. It is a simmering fatigue, mingled with anxiety and helplessness. They gradually learn to coexist with the waste on the sidewalks, the smell of excrement permeating the air, and the shadows of wandering people, as if they have become an inseparable part of the city's landscape.
It's ridiculous, you know. We can do nothing about it. Everywhere you go, you see them, you know. They need a lot of help.
They don't hate the homeless, but they are afraid to look directly at those abandoned lives. Because deep down, they know just one misfortune, and they themselves could be the next to be pushed to the margins of society. Because when a city can no longer protect the vulnerable, even those who seem stable are no longer safe. If even a city, once considered the shining symbol of the American dream, a place of wealth, fame, and opportunity, still allows tens of thousands of people to live without homes, without hope, then is there anywhere truly safe from this spreading crisis? Music was once written to soothe human suffering, but in Los Angeles, those melodies that once brought healing are now being used to erase the presence of the homeless from the growth map.
Blasting from every public address speaker, sounding like the Hollywood Bowl on a summer night, loud classical music for hours on end.
At the stations, parking lots, underpasses, or once quiet street corners, you can hear the sounds of Mozart, Bach, or Beethoven echoing all night long. But those are no longer the melodious and emotional pieces of music. They are short music clips, cut and looped at a deafening volume to prevent the homeless trying to catch a nap in the dark from sleeping peacefully. In a city once built from dreams, music has now become a tool of repulsion. Sound replaces barriers, harmony instead of an eviction order. They call it the anti-gathering strategy. But for those who have nowhere else to go, it is a carefully composed message in music saying, "You are no longer welcome here." But for those who have nowhere else to go, that is the carefully crafted message in the notes. "You are no longer welcome here." This is not an official policy. It is not included in any public documents. But more and more locations in LA and other major cities across the United States are adopting this model. The police do not need to intervene. The people around feel that the public space suddenly became more pleasant. And more importantly, the problem is no longer in sight. So what about the feelings of those who no longer have a home to return to, who must temporarily take refuge in these subway stations? For the homeless individuals of the generation who grew up with these songs, those who once listened to them in theatres, on vinyl records, in high school classrooms, they may now face a deeply contradictory paradox, that the very melodies evoking their youth and peaceful past are being used as a sophisticated tool to push them out of the community. Music, which used to be a spiritual refuge, has now become a sentence, reminding those who are trying to find sleep at train stations that they are no longer welcome in the city they once called home.
I don't think it's right for them to try to drive homeless people away by playing this music too loud.
None of them started their lives with the goal of becoming homeless. But when calamities arise from illness, loss, housing prices, unemployment, and other small things that the system fails to rescue in time, they gradually extinguish that dream, bit by bit. Even amidst that darkness, there are still hands quietly reaching out to grasp the lives that are gradually falling into the abyss. In Venice, a small group has established quiet spots, areas where no music is played at night, dedicated to elderly homeless individuals who need a place to rest. No signs, no media. Just a small quiet corner where people can take a nap in peace and live like true human beings. If a symphony, once used as a healing balm, is now used to chase away someone sleeping under the eaves, then what is truly resonating in the soul of America today? Have you ever heard a favourite song playing and felt it wasn't as warm as before? If that has ever happened, or if this makes you think, please like or share your feelings in the comments. Next, we will step into another space, where the very stone benches, cobblestones and steel fences are whispering their rejection of humanity. Have you noticed? The public spaces around Los Angeles are gradually changing with strange architectures. Public benches are fitted with metal dividers in the middle, sidewalks are paved with sharp, uneven stones, and under bridges there are clusters of pyramid-shaped stones arranged like traps. These are not designs for beauty, but a new type of architecture spreading throughout Los Angeles, used for the sole purpose of erasing the traces of the poor from public spaces. People call these architectures by the frightening name hostile architecture. Those soulless designs seem to be speaking up. That if you can no longer afford to rent an apartment, no longer have an address to declare in your records, then the entire city will find every way to make you and your peaceful sleep disappear at any cost. Architecture, which should be for people to connect, so that everyone can find their place in a vast city. But here, it is gradually becoming a language of exclusion. With residents who still have homes, pensions and jobs, they can walk past those divided benches without much thought. But somewhere deep down, there is still an unnamed unease. If one day I no longer have my health, no one by my side, will this city treat me the same way? Because the line between those with homes and those not allowed to rest is becoming more fragile than ever. Why does a city need to be designed to go against its most vulnerable residents? And if today the benches also reject a person, then tomorrow, what else will become a tool to eliminate the presence of those who can no longer contribute? When night falls over Los Angeles, cleanup operations are quietly underway. Garbage trucks and excavators appear. Silent hands gather tents, sleeping bags, and the fragments of shattered lives. And when dawn breaks, all that remains is an empty space, eerily clean. They call it sweeps, campaigns to clear homeless encampments. In administrative language, this is a measure to maintain urban order. But if viewed from the perspective of those lying in the corners of the street, this is no different from making the homeless once again. In the past year, the city has conducted more than 67 evictions of encampments, averaging over 100 times each day. There are people who have been moved 5 or 6 times in just a few weeks. They do not resist, just trying to pack up as quickly as possible what can still be salvaged, and carry with them a hope that has faded day by day. Homeless people don't need much. They don't demand luxury apartments or unconditional support. They just need a small corner to be at peace, a place where they are not driven away every time the city has a big event or media campaign. But even that seems too far-fetched. The temporary camps are not a voluntary choice. Each tent erected is not just a shelter from the rain and sun, but a poignant acknowledgement that the system has no place for them anymore. And each time the tents are dismantled, people not only lose their place to sleep overnight, but also lose a little more of the feeling that they are still a part of this city. Some communities have tried to think differently. In some districts, volunteer groups have proposed the model of humanitarian transitional camps, where homeless individuals can temporarily stay, keep their personal belongings, have private space, and be connected to medical and psychological services. The Bridge Rest LA project was once piloted at 2 small locations, aiming to provide stable sleeping arrangements for elderly homeless individuals for 3 months. But the budget is limited, and societal support is not strong enough to turn it into a long-term reality. Because to maintain a humanitarian solution, people don't just need money, they need patience, empathy, and a society brave enough to confront the images we have long been accustomed to turning away from. Are we cleaning up the city, or are we removing the parts that our conscience doesn't want to face? And if a tiny tent, a corner of the sidewalk has no place left, then when it's our turn to face difficulties, will there still be a place to return to? The media used to be the place we turned to understand the world. But in Los Angeles today, that is gradually becoming a distorted story. Not because of a lack of information, but because there are too many images and too little truth. Every day, millions of Americans turn on the TV, open social media, scroll through short news clips, short videos, and short headlines. And in those snippets, the homeless appear not as individuals with names, professions, and stories, but merely as urban issues, security threats, nuisances. We are living in an era where hardship is framed as entertainment content and indifference is disguised as current affairs. Brief news reports, quick camera shots across Skid Row, headlines mentioning the chaos, but rarely asking the question, why are they there? Who were they? And what happened to them? That distortion does not only harm an individual, it paralyzes the compassion of the entire community. When viewers only see a part of the negative, without context, without the root of the problem, we quickly form prejudices. And that prejudice causes the poorest people not only to lose their homes and social security, but also the opportunity to be understood. The media does not lie, but it chooses to remain silent on the most important matters. A person who once served in the military, spent their life doing hard labor, is now the focus of a weird person on the street video. A single mother who once worked in public health after a series of personal tragedies has now become a blurred background in the morning news about an unsafe environment. In a society increasingly driven by images, where the truth is meticulously selected and edited to fit the moment, do we, the viewers and sharers, still have the courage to look back? And if a person only exists in the collective memory as a 10-second clip with a sensational headline, then what will remain when we ourselves, one day, are also compressed through the lens of others? In Los Angeles, the city has spent billions of dollars on programs to address homelessness. But somehow, the tents keep popping up. The gaunt faces still huddle by the roadside. And the numbers, instead of decreasing, seem to continue rising year after year. Many people are starting to wonder, is something not functioning as expected? For many people, helping the homeless is a humanitarian act. But amidst the layers of management, budgets, and coordination processes, a question arises. Is it possible that this helping has become part of a larger system? A system with its own budget, service contracts, annual targets, and also with incentives that operate towards maintaining the status quo. The cost to build an apartment for the homeless in Los Angeles has now exceeded $1.3 billion. Some projects were announced with hundreds of homes, but after many years of implementation, the progress has been very slow. In some places, they have completed less than 10%. It could be due to delayed permits, rising costs, labor shortages, or fluctuating material prices. All of them are reasonable reasons. But from there, another issue arises. While the system is adjusting and adapting, those on the margins do not have time to wait. Sometimes, what troubles people is not the numbers, but the contrasting images. A large sign reading, "We are building hope," erected next to an unfinished construction site, while right below, makeshift tents still quietly endure through the night. No one denies that the issue of homelessness is complex and there is no simple solution. But are we really trying to end the crisis? Or are we learning to live with it, as long as it happens out of sight? After each war, there is usually one side that wins. But in Los Angeles, as the war against homelessness continues every day, quietly and persistently, no one can call themselves the winner. Only the remnants remain. Not the visible ruins, but the invisible cracks within a community that once thought it was still intact. After a series of cleanup campaigns, tent demolitions, barricade constructions, temporary housing, and then abandonment, what remains in Los Angeles is not just cleaner streets or more orderly parks, but rather a city that no longer knows how to empathize. What remains in the end may not be the tents, not the homeless, but the indifference, emotional paralysis, when everyone just hopes they don't fall into that situation, rather than wanting to change anything. When the fear of poverty makes us stop asking questions, stop speaking up, because of the feeling that anyone could be the next. Los Angeles used to be a place of dreams. People came here to start over, to seek opportunities. But after a decades-long battle against homelessness, what remains is not a dream, but a deep skepticism. Skepticism about the ability to change, doubt in kindness, doubt in the very system they once believed would protect them as they aged. And when a city loses the ability to trust each other, no matter how beautiful the statistics are, it is hard to call it a victory. Perhaps the scariest thing is not that someone has to sleep under the bridge, but when the whole city has gotten used to it, as a normal part of life. Perhaps In the aftermath of that war, the most valuable thing left behind is neither victory nor defeat. Because can a city still be called a community when the people who once lived there are swept away like an unwanted part of the picture? Los Angeles used to be where everything began. Hollywood, the American dream, along with wide open opportunities. But today, something else is also emerging from this city. A silent draft for a future that none of us ever wished for. Here, one does not just see a few makeshift tents. People see the frightening truth that more and more homeless individuals are retirees. People who once had stable jobs, lived lawfully, and contributed to society. But then, after just a few small slips, medical bills, skyrocketing rent, or a loss, all the order in life suddenly shatters. Homelessness has gradually become everyone's story. If this can happen in Los Angeles, a city with the third largest economy in the United States, with a large social support fund and more housing programs than anywhere else, then what awaits places with fewer resources, smaller communities, states with slower policies, or areas that have never faced this problem? San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Phoenix, all are witnessing similar signs. And while shopping malls continue to rise, there are also quiet neighborhoods where residents are starting to leave silently, not for economic reasons, but because the city is gradually losing something very important: empathy. Amid the modern lights and camera-equipped awnings, we begin to see a divided America, between those who still have a place to return to and those who are no longer allowed to linger. That boundary is thinner than we think. Some people still think they will never fall into that situation. But if you've ever lived through the 2008 crisis or the COVID-19 pandemic, you'll understand. Everything can change very quickly, especially when you're retired. Your health isn't what it used to be, and the support system is increasingly shrinking. However, if Los Angeles is where that draft was written, it could also be where it is rewritten, by small groups experimenting with transitional housing models, by communities organizing meals and mobile healthcare for elderly people without homes, by telling stories kindly, instead of turning them into brief highlights on social media. Because sometimes, preserving the values of a society is not about the budget, but about choices, whom we choose to see and whom we choose not to see. So if a city like Los Angeles, with all its resources and glamour, cannot maintain dignity for the most vulnerable, then where can? And if all acts of kindness become too late, then do we still have time to write a different ending? Los Angeles is not only facing a homelessness crisis. The city that was once a symbol of the American dream is now becoming a mirror reflecting a reality in disarray, where the line between stability and collapse is more fragile than ever. Tents were pitched overnight. Each bench was split in half. Each Mozart melody resounds not to lull the soul, but to push away those who no longer have a place. But amidst those insecurities, there is still hope. Hope lies in those who have not stopped asking questions, in the small communities that still choose to see the people behind each tarp, and in you, the one listening to this story, not to pity, but to understand and reflect. Because sometimes change doesn't start with big solutions, but with our courage to look directly at what is being hidden. What do you think about the battle between the homeless and Los Angeles? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. This video is created for the purpose of analysis, exploration, and provoking community thought based on public data, official sources, and true accounts. We do not represent any political organization or government agency, and we do not intend to incite, distort, or mislead. All content in the video aims to raise social awareness and open up a space for discussion, not to replace legal advice or official data sources.